This is Money Made Simple, the financial podcast that keeps it simple and gets to the point.
Kia ora koutou and welcome to Money Made Simple. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about kids and KiwiSaver. Should Kiwis under 18 have a KiwiSaver? What's the best time to set up an account? What are the key benefits and are there any disadvantages? I have Sebastian Neubrandt here, a member of our Superstar Investor Services team. Hi Seb, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I roped you in today because one, you know heaps about KiwiSaver. You're talking to our members all the time about it, and also you're a parent. So are your kids in KiwiSaver?
So this is what I was afraid of because no, I haven't got around to it yet. So
well, that's interesting because my kids aren't in KiwiSaver either. I've not signed them up yet. We've actually set up investment accounts, but I think this will be good. I suspect this conversation might give us both something to think about. Yeah. Okay, well, the first thing that we need to do is establish why someone would want to sign their kids up to KiwiSaver. Is there any point in signing up before you turn 18?
Well, yes, even though they're not eligible for any of the sort of extras an adult will get, so employee contributions and government contributions, it's still an investment fund and it's still saving for their future. And especially if you start early, it's going to make a difference once they reach an age where they want to use it. So, first home or much later on when they retire.
Yeah, I guess getting together a deposit for their first home, that's a pretty good reason just on its own, right? With the cost of housing so high in New Zealand, every kid could benefit from having a head start and saving a deposit.
Yeah, and I think not every parent can sort of contribute towards their child's first home. So I think this is a good alternative because instead of just coming up with a lump sum, when they want to buy, if you start young, you'll be giving them that gift anyway.
That's a really good point because, lots of people that get into their first home are able to do that because their parents can give them a deposit. Yeah. But not all of us are in that position, so this might be a much more affordable way that you can build up that deposit. And I guess the reason why starting young is so important is our old friend compounding returns. We've done an episode on this topic, so hopefully everyone that's listening already understands that time is really key. The earlier you start, the better. And what about other reasons why parents might consider opening a KiwiSaver account for their kids?
Well, we see it a lot where sometimes a grandparent will actually come to us and want to open it for their grandkids, and obviously they can't. It has to be a guardian, but then they can then contribute to the KiwiSaver. So anybody can. So that's birthdays, Christmas, anything like that. They're just gifts, and I think it's a really cool gift because it's for their future, and like I said, anybody can do it, and it's locked up. They're not going to be able to use it for anything else besides first home or retirement. So it's really safe. So
so mum and dad can't withdraw some of it to redecorate the house or go on a holiday or something.
No. Maybe that's why I haven't set up the KiwiSaver yet.
Okay, and another reason might be that it sets your children up with good financial habits.
Oh, yeah. I think that's one of the positives that's not initially seen is that when you start talking about any type of financial topics with your kids, at the end of the day, it does, over the years, they will learn about it and they will get interested. It's just that education itself is valuable.
So being in KiwiSaver is a great way to help children establish some good money habits, get them thinking about their financial future, setting long-term goals, that kind of thing. Okay, so we've decided that it sounds like a pretty good idea to set up KiwiSaver accounts for your kids. An important question to ask is, what is the right amount to invest? Is it better to put a one-off amount in and then just leave it there to grow, or are you better off making small, regular payments?
Either or. I think it also just depends on where you're at. If you do have a lump sum to put in your kids' account, then that's great. But if you don't have that, you don't want to be discouraged. So yes, option one, you could make a one-off payment into, for instance, a growth fund. And the government has they have their own assumption, which, there's a projected return of 4.5% per year. This is after fees and tax. And let's just say we start when your child is born. So say you put $5,000 and leave it for 18 years, at which point your child will have just over $11,000, and $6,000 of that is compounding returns. Then option two, you put in $10 a week. Maybe you don't have that big lump sum to put in there. Same fund, the growth fund, when they're born, and then when they turn 18, they'll have just over $14,000, which of that just under $5,000 is compounding returns. So you'll have to contribute more of your money, earn a bit less in compounding returns, but your child will have more money saved at 18.
Okay. So that was the one-off payment and leave it, or the regular payments. And In both cases, you're ending up with a decent amount of money. I actually have an option 3 because Liv's not with us, and so I thought one of us had to be the girly SWAT. So I've got an option of you put in an initial $2,000 when the child is born into a growth fund, and then from that point on, you contribute $15 every week until your child is 18. And this will give you almost $26,000, which is a pretty decent amount of money. Yeah. A large portion of that, almost 10 grand, will be earned in compounding returns. So, yeah, I guess it really depends on your situation, right? Not everyone has $5,000 or $2,000 sitting around, so making weekly payments might be more realistic.
Yeah, and you can't use it for your holiday.
Well, no, exactly. Is that what you're planning to do?
I saw that and I was like, oh, we can go on holiday with that. No,
it's about your children's future.
I want to go to Disneyland.
Do you? With the kids?
Yes.
Oh, cool. That sounds fun.
Memory investments.
Yeah, you're investing in their well-being and
Yeah.
their happiness. Okay, so apart from parents, we mentioned earlier that other people can also contribute to a child's KiwiSaver account. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so look, you have to be a legal guardian to open an account for your child, but anybody can contribute to that. You just need to know the details of the account, and this goes for any provider. You just need to ask whoever set the account up the details, and anybody can make a contribution.
Okay. And this could be like a one-off gift, say an inheritance perhaps, or maybe an annual payment at their birthday. I was thinking about this though, and I was like, as a kid, you're like, oh, would I rather my grandparent put $100 into my KiwiSaver account or gave me a present? And, as a child, you'd probably not really understand it. But later on in your life, you'd be very grateful.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for some education.
Yeah.
It's that whole analogy of do you want the stale donut now or do you want to wait for the fresh one?
I want the fresh one.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably always eat the stale one.
We're different there then. Okay, and you referenced this before as well, but if you're under 18, you're not eligible for all the benefits of KiwiSaver, and that's contributions in some cases, right?
Yes. Yeah. So even when you start working as an under 18-year-old, you're not going to be getting any of the contributions from your employer or the automatic deduction from your pay. I believe some companies who employ under 18s will do it, but that's up to the company themselves.
And if you are in PAYE employment, like say you've got a part-time job while you're still at school, you can make employee contributions, even if your employer's not making any.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'd just be something you'd have to talk to your
payroll team. Yeah. Because I remember I had a part-time job when I was in high school, and they made contributions. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's up to the company.
Yeah, okay. So basically, it's not compulsory for employers to contribute into your KiwiSaver account until you're 18, but they might. And under 18s are also not eligible for the government contribution, which is a maximum of about $521 a year. And of course, there's a few other eligibility requirements for that government contribution. So that's all the contributions that can and can't be made into a child's account. Next question is, how much does it actually cost to run a kid's KiwiSaver account?
So this really does differ depending on who you're with as a provider. Some have annual membership fees, then there's management fees. So that depends on if you're with a low fee provider, it could be 0.25%. Or even if you're with an active provider and has a big team of investment analysts and all that, then you're going to be paying a bit more. So it can be up to 2% of your investment balance. So
yeah, that's quite a broad range, isn't it? As usual, we'd point you to our wonderful friends at sorted.org.nz. There's some great tools there where you can compare fees for all the various KiwiSaver providers. But I think especially if you're starting this savings by putting in small regular amounts rather than a lump sum amount, I'd try and avoid any schemes with membership fees. That's where there's a flat fee charge, so it's not calculated against the size of your balance, but it's just the same fee. It could be charged monthly or annually, but that could be a real drag on any growth in those first few years as you're kind of building up the fund. So I just think about that. And then of course the other cost is tax.
yes, yeah, and that's a really good thing about KiwiSaver is that when you open it for a minor, it's in their name. They are the beneficiary, so it will be taxed against them and not the parent. There are other places you can invest for a child, but it'll be a look-through account where the parent is the beneficiary and the tax rate will be an adult rate. But with KiwiSaver, it's going to be taxed against that child, so it's going to be much lower.
Yeah, the tax is based on your PIR or prescribed investor rate, which is calculated on income from the previous 2 years. So as a low or non-earner, your child will likely be in the lowest tax rate of 10.5%. Another question for parents or guardians to ask themselves when setting up an account for their child is which fund to choose. There's a wide range of funds available across all KiwiSaver providers. We've done an episode on this not too long ago. They can broadly be categorised into 5 baskets from defensive through to conservative, balanced, growth, and then high growth or aggressive. The funds are distinguished by their asset allocation, which is a fancy word for the types of things that they're invested in, and they all carry different levels of risk and long-term projected returns. Seb, do you think there are kind of different things that you need to think about when picking a fund for your child?
Well, the same guidelines apply as for adults in terms of what fund you choose. So you really do need to ask yourself, what's the time frame for this investment? And how do I feel on behalf of your child about the risk level? And how much volatility are we willing to tolerate? So, when you're thinking about returns over a long term, for instance, with a conservative fund, you do have less ups and downs and the growth is slow and steady. A high growth fund will be a bumpier ride, but the idea is that you'd get higher returns. My favorite analogy is if you had to look at a returns graph and you sort of zoom in really close and you will see those troughs and peaks, which looks scary. But as soon as you zoom out over a longer period, you just see a trend line going upwards. With children, because their investment horizon is so long, especially for KiwiSaver, they are the perfect investor.
Yeah, I think most people, given the longer time horizon, will probably choose a higher risk fund for their kids. They're not going to be able to access the funds for a long time, but that means they can ride out a bit more volatility over the short term for the sake of those higher returns. But I definitely suggest going back and listening to our previous episode on fund types just to get a bit more information about the different funds and kind of a bit more in-depth analysis about how you make that choice. So once we've decided we want to get the kids into KiwiSaver, tick, we have a good idea about the sort of contributions that we're going to be able to afford and who might be able to contribute to it. And we know what fund we want to go in. Is there a good time to sign up? Is there a perfect time?
Well, same thing as before. When you're in it for the long run, when things stretch out so far, it's not going to make a massive difference when you start, as long as you start, because it's time is your friend. So the longer you're in there, as again, you step back, you look at that graph, you're not going to notice the first ups and downs in that graph. You've taken a step back, you're looking at that graph, you don't even notice those little troughs or heights. You're looking at where you ended up. So
there's no sort of point in trying to time the market or do anything like that. Just start now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the process of joining KiwiSaver is largely the same for under 18-year-olds as it is for adults, right? Are there any differences for setting up a child's account?
Yes, yeah. So if your child is new to KiwiSaver, we need both guardians set up account. Obviously, if there's lots of different types of families, so if things are a bit different, just talk to your provider. We do need to follow certain regulations, so just have a chat to them, and they can help you with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's a bit different, if you're 16 or 17 years old, just one guardian.
We need just one guardian. Yeah. And then if you're with KiwiSaver and you just want to transfer, then also just one guardian.
If you're an existing member and you just want to switch providers. Okay. What about the sort of documentation and stuff that you're going to need?
Yeah, so basically we need the birth certificate, and that shows the child, and then the two guardians, and then we need to prove who those guardians are. So each of them then send us the ID information, which we can do our cross-checks on. Sometimes some providers would want physical copies, some can do digital background checks. It just depends. And then we do need IRD numbers as well.
Is it easy to get IRD numbers for kids?
Yeah, the IRD's website, My IR, is brilliant. If your child doesn't have an IRD number, just head over there and you can get that sorted.
Okay.
It takes 5 minutes. Really
so
good.
You need IRD numbers, you need proof of the child's identification, proof of your own identification, plus another guardian if that's needed as well. And then the form is pretty similar to an adult application.
And it's very quick as well.
Yeah. Okay. So it shouldn't be in the too hard basket.
No. I think it takes about 5 minutes.
If you had all the right information and documents in front of you and ready to go, right?
Yeah.
So finally then, Seb, do you think that KiwiSaver is always the right option? I mean, we've both admitted at the beginning that we don't have our own children in KiwiSaver. So what are the other options?
Yes, there are a few options. You can just put it in a savings account. However, it's not going to grow as much. Or if you like the certainty, you can put it in a term deposit because through an agreement, you'll know exactly what you'll get back. Or there are non-KiwiSaver investment funds. Depends on the provider, but generally the funds will be quite similar to the KiwiSaver funds on offer. The main difference is the ease of access to the funds. So with KiwiSaver, you are locked in and you can only withdraw the funds for a first home or when you retire. But with savings or investment funds, you can save for something more specific, for your child's education, or if you think they might want to travel. It's just so much easier to get that money out. But the one thing to remember is that when they do turn 18, they gain complete ownership of that account and those funds. So, yeah, you've got to kind of trust your child that when they turn 18, they're going to have their head on straight. So I would say that's the only downside to the investment funds.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we've done. We've set up investment funds for the kids for their education or potentially a gap year or travel or something. I hadn't really thought about that.
Well, through my eyes as an 18-year-old, I think, personally, it's much better in KiwiSaver because, I think I would have dug into that money a long time ago.
True, but, maybe it's also something to talk to your kids about, and I hadn't thought about that, like the potential of my children spending all this money that we've spent years and years and years saving, like actually having a conversation with them about that and kind of building that trust might be, a really good thing to do. And it also does point to the benefit, like you said, of KiwiSaver and having that money locked up. So maybe you have both options and you have shorter and longer term saving goals for those, different funds. Okay, so this might be something we need to put back on our own to-do list, Seb, and hopefully we've covered some of the reasons that you, lovely listeners, might consider KiwiSaver for your kids. It's not the only option. There, you can look at saving in a different way. There are different ways to contribute, whether you do it in the lump sum or regular payments over time. They're both reasonable options, but it's worth doing your calculations to kind of work out what's going to work for you. Do think about fees and check the fund provider that you're looking at, whether that's Simplicity or not.
Yes, like you said before, Sorted is really good because there are different, parameters you can use for it, and you can sort by provider based on fees or returns or both. Yeah, Sorted's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
Really...
Once you have set up an account, totally worth talking to aunties and uncles and grandparents and godparents and say, look, we've done this for our child, and if you want to contribute, this is the way you might do it. And then don't forget to talk to your kid about it too. Your children can learn a lot from conversations about why you've done it and what they're saving for.
Just bring it into your family culture, I guess, which is something I really need to do. Because if your grandparents and the aunts and all that are all involved in it, then there is a bit of a culture that gets, perpetuated, and that's quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, we actually started this podcast based on the book Sam Stubbs wrote, Money Made Simple, and the very first simple truth was that we need to talk more about money. So this is really a perfect opportunity.
And I think he mentioned don't buy a boat.
Did he? I don't think that's something I'll ever be doing, but...
Well, he didn't say anything about going to Disneyland, so...
No, true. You can keep that on the agenda, Seb. Okay, and one final point I just wanted to make was the examples and calculations that we've shared over this episode were all based on starting to save or invest as soon as a child was born. If that's your plan, awesome. But if you're like me and Seb and aren't that organised and haven't done that for your children at birth, just remember it's never too late.
Don't put it off for another year like us. Just start now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much for coming in, Seb.
No, thanks for having me. It was really fun.
I've enjoyed it too, and we'll get you back again sometime soon, I think. And coming up next episode, it's me again. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to be speaking to Glenys Talevai, who's the CEO of Public Trust, and we're going to be talking all about making a will, something else that I need to get sorted. So we look forward to talking to you then. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
This podcast contains personal opinions and is intended to provide educational information only. It doesn't relate to your particular financial situation or goals and is not financial advice or recommendations. Simplicity New Zealand Limited is the issuer of the Simplicity KiwiSaver scheme and investment funds. For product disclosure statements, please visit Simplicity's website simplicity.kiwi.